Hey, welcome everybody to the Grade Us webinar, Fighting Fake Reviews, Tactics, and Strategies. My name is Garrett Sussman. I am your host today. I'm the Senior Content Marketing Manager at Grade Us. Thank you to everyone who is attending. Basically, I've got some really great experts along with me. These are the guys who really know fake reviews, how to deal with them. They've had a lot of practical experience. So the goal of the webinar today is we're going to kind of go through a lot of the common questions and major issues that are currently coming up with different types of fake reviews and how they impact businesses. We will be taking questions at the very end. We want to set aside, 15 to 20 minutes to make sure everyone gets a chance to, ask any questions that they have and have these guys answer them, because a lot of you all have firsthand experience dealing with them, and you need to know what the best course of action is, even if you don't, necessarily have the best solution. What's next best? So, I'd like to introduce my panelists today. We have Jason Brown. Jason is the owner of Review Fraud and also works at Over the Top Marketing. He is an expert at fake reviews, two major components, whether that's just fighting fake reviews that competitors have or fighting negative fake reviews that you've received, and how to deal with those as they come up. Thank you for joining me today, Jason.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Next up, we have Ben Fisher of Steady Demand. Ben basically helps a lot of small businesses and agencies, a lot of agency work, help get clients set up on Google My Business. Specifically, he helps with fighting spam and making sure that if you have some sort of Google My Business suspension, he can help you do a reinstatement. He can also protect your business from getting suspended on Google My Business. He told me before that he actually has a 90% success rate at fighting spam and getting it off of Google My Business. And he also has a 100% reinstatement rate. Ben, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Although Jason's going to take all the wind out of my sails, I could just tell you, because Jason is the expert when it comes to fighting review spam. There's a reason he has Review Fraud.
I got to tell you, these guys were just in Denver at localu.org. They had a great event, so they've been buddying it up all weekend, but talking a lot of great stuff about reviews, a lot of great conversations and conferences or speeches, presentations happen there. But finally, our third panelist, coming from across the pond in the UK, just coming back for this webinar from his honeymoon, just got married, is Andy Drinkwater of IQ SEO. Andy really does everything reputation management, and he helps a lot of brands really protect their reputation and defend them against those sort of negative mentions that come online. One of the things I love about Andy's consultancy is there's a very ethical component there, as with all of these guys. But Andy, really prides himself on only accepting clients, that he supports and believes in. Andy, thank you so much for joining us right after your mini honeymoon. We're excited for you to be here today.
That's lovely. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so today, as I said, we're going to dive into some of these fake reviews. So, top high level, before we even get started, one of the things I really want to talk about is why are Google reviews important to local businesses in 2019?
All right, so let's go over some stats just really quickly, right? So 86% of consumers do read reviews from local businesses. So that's number one. Number two, when we did the local rankings study, we found out that, if you look across what everybody says in the model study, 15% basically of Google World local ranking factors come from some kind of a review signal, whether that be positive, negative, the aggregate score, etc. Some more things that are kind of interesting. 40% of consumers only take into account the reviews that you've gotten within the last 2 weeks. So that means if you're only getting a couple of reviews a month, you're probably missing out on quite a few opportunities, which is why we see a lot of companies, just buy a bunch of fake reviews, right? They can't earn the reviews, so why not go ahead and just buy them? And then Jason can nuke them. And the other thing is that, if you take a look at just one more stat, and that is that the consumers will take a look at an average of your last 10 reviews before they're going to decide to make an actual purchase and trust you. So the reason I'm throwing all these stats out and these numbers is because these were put together by people who are far smarter than I am, right? And looked at sample groups. We're talking, in the hundreds of thousands as far as consumer reviews go. And so if you look at all of that, you can take a look at the fact that if you're not getting reviews, you're just missing a ton of opportunities. You're not building any kind of trust. And yeah, I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to trust. Because if I'm evaluating you as a service, I want to know what other people have experienced, good and bad. And I also want to see what your response is to the good and the bad. One last piece before I move on to that, because it's a good point, I think, and it'll probably be up in later discussion, is the idea of not responding to good reviews or bad reviews. A lot of people don't have bandwidth internally to respond to both good and bad. But my challenge is respond to the good and the bad. I don't care how you do it. Just do it. If you only respond to good, then you're saying, I only care about my customers who think I'm good. If you only respond to the bad, you're like, I don't care about the people who had a good experience. They already had a good experience. The bad experience, I need to kiss their butt so they'll change it to a 5. So, to give me a 5-star or whatever. Anyway, I'm done, off my soapbox.
Yeah, no, I think you make 3 really great points in terms of the value of reviews. One is this idea specifically about your business, about how reviews are that kind of foundation of trust. They matter not only to your business, but to other people who are looking at your business. Reviews are really that kind of social proof. They show that you're a trustworthy business, that you deserve the business of other people who are looking at you. The second part I got from you was just that reviews are important to your actual customers, the relationship between the business and the customer. So, when someone is sharing a positive or a negative experience, they're speaking to the business as well as other customers, but there's a communication there. There's that opportunity to really connect with your customers, to either, celebrate the positive ones with a positive response, or to address the negative issues that come up. And the third, which, while we all think, want to focus on our customers, there is that visibility component that reviews matter for your search rankings. They matter for how you show up on Google and different review sites. And so those are these 3 value propositions that matter to the business. I think it's a great start, and it really highlights the value of Google across just the showing up and just the trust. So the next part of this I want to talk about is, Jason, let's go to you, because you are Mr. Fake Review Killer. How big of a problem are fake reviews for business owners right now?
Well, I think it's getting worse and worse, as it's just kind of carte blanche right now. So you can go on, you can get into a Facebook group and do review swaps. I just got an email this morning from somebody that keeps trying to sell me fake reviews on, and they keep sending me their examples. So look, all these review studies are just making it so that reviews are more of a ranking factor and more of a prominence factor for businesses. And so, yeah, people are looking at their competitors and saying, okay, look, they've got 57 reviews and a 4.9 rating, and I've got 12. I need to keep up with the Joneses. Or, hey, I outperform the Joneses, so let me go and apply a bunch of negative reviews on my competitor, and just slam them and bring their rating down, and we've actually seen a lot more cases of negative reviews being leveraged against businesses instead of businesses going out and buying reviews, because it's a lot easier to just tank a business real quick than to get caught with the fake reviews that I'm and smack down. Or your customers are gonna see those reviews and see that they're fake and then go elsewhere.
I mean, that's the crazy thing that I'm getting from you, is like just, highlighting the value of reviews because they're so important to businesses. Businesses are going to do whatever they can to use them to their advantage. And especially in certain wild west ecosystems, when the rules aren't enforced, that's like literally digging for gold and trying to get as much as you can, no matter what it takes to outdo your competitors. And that is a problem for a honest, moral business owner.
Correct.
So what would you say? You kind of touched on why they're a problem. Would you say are they getting better with moderating them? Like specifically with Google, have you seen Google taking any steps to handling these fake reviews any better, or is that not the case?
Somewhat yes, somewhat no. So I've actually turned in quite a few negative review attacks, and then all of a sudden Google's just like not taking down those reviews, and it's like clearly obvious that it's somebody connected with a business, or it was obviously derivative of something going on, sparking online, and Google's just like, okay, well, we'll take down maybe 87% of the reviews and then leave these, or we'll take down one review and leave these others. So, I think Google's focusing more on like the fake listing crackdown right now, and I don't think the review space is really something they're ready to completely tackle at the moment.
It's really interesting. Andy, that brings me over to you in terms of you come from the UK where it's interesting with each geography, there are slightly different review ecosystems. Have you noticed in the UK, are Google fake reviews an issue over there, or would you say not as much as the US? Because I know you have clients on both sides of the ocean.
I do indeed, yeah. So, I mean, the majority of the clients I get are from outside of the UK. Excuse me. I don't think that it's as yet as much of an issue in the UK as it is in the US. Whether that's just a numbers game or whether the people over in the UK are just shopping slightly differently. I just don't think there's as much of an issue around it. But there is a lot of problem around this. I mean, certainly with the reviews themselves, the ones that I do get, UK, they tend not to be big attacks. They tend to be sort of like smaller businesses that might have one or two negatives, that somebody's created a couple of Google accounts and then they've managed to fire off a couple of negative reviews. I've not, certainly from within the UK, I've not had anybody who's had a real big hit yet. And I say yet because it's always
you see it in the US. Like you definitely have a lot of clients who are dealing with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so US is very, very different in terms of what I see. So, like I said, majority seem to be over there, which is always fun for me.
So, and this is what I'm curious about next is in terms of all three of you guys, and I'll start with you again, Andy. Jason touched on one earlier, but I want to go through some of these different fake review schemes, like what business owners need to look out for, what is actually happening out there. So, Andy, have you encountered any specific review schemes that someone has attacked one of your clients and you've identified?
I have, yes, and it's quite bizarrely, it was in a Facebook group that I was, because I'm in lots of these Facebook groups, seeing what people are doing, seeing what people, watching out for what people are doing, and I saw somebody request something towards a client of mine as well. So it's out there. So within the group itself, I actually saw somebody requesting negative reviews towards this particular client, which I thought was unbelievable, because you don't necessarily they're there, and there's groups popping up all over the place, and social media for me is a big reason why it's so easy to do now. I mean, there's Facebook groups all over the place to do whatever you want. If you want people to sort of do retweets and that's what they're retweeting, or say something negative about someone, then people are quite happy to do it for a couple of dollars or something like that. It doesn't make any difference. So there's lots and lots of these groups. Make it very, very difficult to sort of, well, you can't police them all, you can't be around them all, but you can certainly see what there is.
That's a really good point, especially with a private Facebook group where, who's the onus on? Is it on the group members to call this out unless it's specifically made for that purpose? Is it on Facebook? What would you do? What do you do in that situation if you're in a Facebook group and you see someone, kind of trying to sell or buy fake reviews? Is there any action that you recommend someone would take?
The only reason I'm a member of any of these is so I can see who's doing what and what I need to be aware of. But the reviews themselves, they're like you say, they are private groups. If somebody wants to go off and buy a negative review, or fire off a dozen, 2 dozen, 50, 100 negative reviews towards somebody, it's way too easy to do that now. And these private groups make it very, very easy to do so as well.
And it kind of makes you go back to, that's on Google or the different review site ecosystems to crack
Yes.
down on it. And Jason, you've encountered some really complex fake review schemes. You want to kind of just run down the list of a few that you've seen that, either you've taken down, or B, that people should just be aware of?
Yeah, I think one of my least favorites is the 4-star review attacks. And so what well, not just that one that we had where there was like what 60,000 4-star reviews that just got posted within like a week. That one was just a test. But the people that are leaving what looks like a positive 4-star review for a business in San Diego, and they're going and pulling that an old review from like an old Yelp listing, and all they're doing is just changing the name of the business. And so I was actually seeing where it was happening with like wedding photographers and frozen yogurt shops around the country, but primarily in San Francisco. And so they would go and leave this positive review for this frozen yogurt shop saying how great the macaroons were. And we're like, okay, everybody in the world knows that they don't sell macaroons at a frozen yogurt shop. Like, if you don't know that, then, come on. But unfortunately, this frozen yogurt shop received like 17 of those things. And so, I had to go in and document the whole thing, extrapolate all the Yelp reviews and show, where they were actually being pulled from, and then turn it over to Google to get them to, take it down. So I think that's one of my least and most favorite review schemes that I've seen, unfortunately.
Jason, with that specific, because people might think to themselves, "Oh, 4-star review isn't a bad thing. Like that's a good review, even if it's not relevant to the business." Can you explain to our audience why that specific scheme would have a negative impact on a business?
Sure. So you take a 5-star business, right? So they have a 5-star, and they just start getting hit with all of these 4 stars, and it just slowly, incrementally starts bringing down their overall rating. And so now their next closest competitor has like a 4.6 rating, and you get like 27 of those, and next thing you know, you're down to like a 4.3 or 4.2. And now, as people are looking at that map pack, they're now seeing that you're below them, or in some cases, it can actually knock you out of the map pack and actually put 3 other competitors ahead of you. And you're going to lose a lot of business from people that don't know your business and are doing searches. Because we know a lot of people are doing searches. And when they're doing their searches, they're looking at, proximity, hours, location, and the overall rating. And so, yeah, if they see a business if they see 3 choices, 4.9, 4.7, and 4.7, they're not going to go with the 4.3.
Right, exactly. And especially like in industries like the legal industry, where they're super competitive about having a 5-star review rating, and like just dropping that percentile of a review, of a star rating aggregate, will have a serious impact. I mean, if you're not in the 3-pack, you are actually losing leads and customers. So, that affects the business bottom line. That goes back to, the value of those Google reviews in the first place. Now, Ben, how would you say, do you have any fake review schemes, and how do these schemes impact some of the clients that you've worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got this one client actually who hired me to remove fake reviews, and it was a fake review network from a pest control company. And this pest control company was one of their competitors. So I'm not going to say who it was. But anyway, pest control company, they have 3 locations, 2 which are fake. Anyway, that's a whole other story. What they would do is they would run a Facebook campaign that says, "Hey, we need 20 more reviews. Share this post with your friends, and let's get those 20 reviews on this location. We're moving on to this location next week." So we analyzed every single profile, right? Made a spreadsheet. On the left-hand side, we had the locations. On the top, I had the profile and a link to the profile of the reviewer. And then what I would do is just very simply to say, okay, well, this reviewer has reviewed this location, and this location. There was only 3, right? So, and just did that across the entire line, all of the reviewers, all of the reviews. When you do that, now all of a sudden the pattern is extremely obvious. You could see the burst, basically, where it would happen is you would have, this review string basically at the top, and then the review string would start in the middle, for the second location, and then the third location. It was like 20 or 40 at a time. But then you could see that also another pattern that evolved from it too is out of the 40 odd individual reviewers, you would see that there was about 13 of them that would leave reviews for all three, or all two, or just the first one and the last one. Either way, again, plainly obvious pattern. One of them even had the last name of the company. Their last name was the same as the company, so I thought that was funny. It was one of the owners. So, problem though is,
but it's still
even
complex, right? Like, that's a complex way. It's not like you're just sending someone to do 1-star reviews. This is a whole network that you had to kind of identify.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the solicitation. This isn't like we are paying you to do this. This is just saying, hey, just share this with your friends and have anybody do it.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes the problem, is that this is personal to the client because they know that this company is getting reviews in a fraudulent manner, and they have not earned these reviews. So now it becomes something very personal. It's an attack on me as a business owner that they're allowed to get away with this. And it's also disingenuous to the consumer who's buying the service, because now it's like, well, you can't, you're looking at this client or this company over here. It's got 120 5-star reviews. Okay. And I've got, 20. Who are you going to pick? You're going to pick my competitor more than likely.
Matters. Yeah,
exactly. So now it becomes a very personal thing. And unfortunately, so you have to kind of go to these lengths if you want to prove fake reviews sometimes.
Which is a perfect segue that actually leads us into that next question, which are, and Ben, if you want to keep kind of sharing, what are some of those ways that you can actually detect that a review is fake? Whether it's just slight nuances, or like whether you're the business owner or just, a user looking to use a business.
Yeah, Jason's going to have a ton to say about this, so I'll just cut him off for a couple things, and then I'll let him go into it. Andy, probably you too, right? So I'll just start. Language. Language is number one, because when people are in these groups and they're swapping and the review swapping, they're usually doing it overseas. It's usually being done in Singapore, Philippines, Japan, etc., Russia, a lot of Russia. So I'll go over one interesting one that I did, that I was successfully got removed, that I didn't think I was actually going to get removed. Immigration lawyer. Their client actually was a murderer, and believe it or not, and got deported to Mexico. So the murderer and their girlfriend decided to, every time they got a positive review, they would leave a negative review. And they did this about 40 times. Okay. So in looking at this, it was almost impossible to tell, because they would set up fake Google profiles. And they weren't like crazy Google profiles. They were like, Mexican names, like proper names. How we were able to get them removed is we were able to take a look at the language that was being used in each one of the negative reviews. And there was just enough similarity in the phrasing of the words that we were able to say, this is more than likely the same exact person.
Mm-hmm.
And then Andy decides to leave us. No, just kidding. So no, but so we were able to tell. So anyway, we were able to tell, and we were able to actually get them all submitted to Google. Google looked at it. They were able to find out more information on the back end, and they were able to remove all the reviews.
That's just the crazy thing, because obviously this is another point, and I want you to kind of address this as well, Jason, is that you are dependent on Google to agree with you. You're making a case to them, and whether or not, we think they're fair or not, it's their rules and their moderators. So, Jason, what are some of these, the ways that you detect the fake review? And if we can also, start to talk about that conversation of like, how do you look at it from Google's eyes in terms of ultimately removing them? We'll get to our tactics in a little bit, but how do you identify them?
Okay, well, first off, I can't be completely clairvoyant and know what Google's seeing, because they're actually able to see more behind the scenes than we are. And sometimes when they reject me, it's because, they see more than I can see. But I mean, here's the thing. I mean, kind of like Ben had alluded to, you can easily click on on all the review profiles unless they are hiding them, and that's usually like a big red flag. If you have like 17 reviewers and they're all keeping their reviews private, I just turn it all over to Google. And I'm like, look, I can't see it. You guys gonna have to look at it and see what's going on here, but this looks suspicious. Like all 17 people don't want to share. But I mean, I'll do a reverse image search and I'll right click on their profile and search for it. And a lot of times you're finding it's, some Russian bride model, or, it's a celebrity or it's a mugshot, deceased person, regular person. Look, I mean, come on. I found Barron Trump's profile photo being used for a review. And Chelsea Clinton, Miley Cyrus, Kevin James, it doesn't matter. They're going to do anything they can to, bolster that profile. But if I'm looking at a business and they have 17 reviews, and then I look at all 17 reviews and I notice that they're all reviewing like 18 of the same businesses in multiple states, so that's usually like my red flag. I'm like, okay, just document it, turn it all over. But yeah, I really look at the profiles, and yeah, there are some cases where, like one guy here in LA, he created the fake reviews himself, and he used like the same language, but he would always use caps, like intermixed into his reviews. And so it's just like able to say, look, here he is using all caps in his reviews. Here he is using all caps in his replies, and the language matches, and turned it all over to Google. And of course, they decimated it. He came back, did it again, got him decimated, and then he did a bunch of negative reviews on his competitors, and he had to go back in and report those. And yeah, it was just like, the guy was doing fake reviews again. So I got to go back in and wipe him out again. But that's just kind of how you do it. You got to look at the profile and look to see what they're reviewing. Or the new thing that people are doing because they listen to Ben, Joy, and I talk was, they'll leave 3 reviews. So one for the fake business, and then 2 for like restaurants in the area, And so when you start seeing like a bunch of those similar patterns, just like, okay, come on, you're obviously trying to hide and spoof stuff. So look, turn that over to Google and because I'm like, I think I can see a pretty crystal clear picture, but Google ultimately knows what's actually going on with these profiles and other stuff. I can't get into NDA.
No, yeah, that's fair, but that's crazy, and ultimately, I think the message I get here is like you really do have to play A, detective, and B, lawyer. The idea is you have to detect the patterns to be able to then have a body of evidence to show to Google and then present to Google. And yeah, we don't know what Google sees, but we can do our part as long as you provide as much evidence as possible of these patterns that people will trip themselves up with little like almost poker tells and how they give away their fake reviews. That's what you kind of have to do when you're helping your own business or your clients. Now, Andy, this is the big thing, and I think this is what a lot of people have come to this webinar for, because ultimately it's what are these tactics? How do you handle when you identify a fake review on your clients, whether that's a slew of attacks or just a few individual. Let's start with individual reviews, Andy. What are your first, second, and last resort tactics for dealing with an obvious fake negative review attack on your client?
The very first thing, which I think a lot of people will want to do, is they get angry and they want to lash out. Don't is the simple answer. So that'll come back and bite you up in so many different ways. And if you're professional about it and you say, look, I don't actually know who you are, but here's an invite to come and contact me. They never will. But here's your invite anyway. But if Google can see as well, I said that you're being professional about it, and you want other people that are reading your reviews to be seeing you as a professional as well. So you want to make sure that you don't try and sort of argue your way out of it, because if you're arguing with somebody who's got a fake profile, you'll get nowhere, absolutely nowhere at all, and you'll end up feeling really bad about it yourself as well. So yeah, do respond to them. And I think, Ben, when you said originally, I say respond to all your positives and your negatives. If you've not got 20,000, somebody's trying to just sort of cause you a whole heap of trouble, then it does work out well for you to try and sort of make sure you do reply to the positives and the negatives as well. And ultimately, if you are stuck and you're really not sure what you need to be doing, then you need to hire somebody to come in and sort of help you out at that point. There's no point in thinking, right, what will be my next move? What should be my next move? Because if you've not had to deal with this before, then hopefully, like I say, people will get some good takeaways from this as well. It would ultimately be a good move to get some professional input on these as well, because as both Ben and Jason have said, like I said, sometimes these schemes can be very, very deeply knitted, and people have spent a long time creating them. I mean, if you look at some of the negative reviews that people get, they're from 6-7 star local reviewers. I mean, these people have spent hundreds of hours creating these profiles with the absolute urgency. Like I say, right, that's it. We need to now create negatives for you, and we know that Google's probably going to believe us because we've spent got a lot of people following us. Like I said, people believe our profiles, people believe the reviews that we read, excuse me, that we leave. There's so much that you can actually do to make a believable profile. That's is where would you begin sometimes? I say, and you do need to dig around with them. Fortunately, I've not had anything quite as complex as some of the ones that Ben was talking about there. Yet.
I think that's a really great point. And like that's the key, is really responding. But the last thing you want to do in your response, like it's essential response. Your silence is a response, but you don't want to do any damage or anything negative to
Correct.
your own brand and business by responding inappropriately. Ben, you have had a lot of experience in responding to both positive and negative reviews. Do you have anything to add in terms of best practices for responding to a fake review?
Yes, I do. So we'll start out with another stat. Why not? 89% of consumers do read business reviews to responses to reviews. So it's very important. One thing, there's so many things I want to touch on, Andy, because you said a lot of really great stuff there. So just really quickly, is that local guide level doesn't mean jack, number one, right? To Google. To a user, it might be different. Because if somebody actually does click on the profile and they're like, oh my God, a level 10 guide. Wow, what does that mean? I have no idea, but it sounds cool. They might trust it. So when it comes to responding to reviews, I like to basically adopt the attitude of a pirate. And what I mean by that is AARRG. Okay, so and that is accept, acknowledge, reply, resolve, and I'm throwing in the G there for grade us. So
you can come on to any webinar you want to, Ben. No.
But so in other words, you take your standard review response, accept what's been said. That takes the emotional aspect out of your response that you're going to make within 24 hours. Acknowledge. It doesn't matter if they called you a name and they said that you're a racist, or if they said that you offer macaroons and you don't. Just acknowledge it, and that could be something as simple as, thank you very much. We value your opinion. We're going to take this feedback back to our management. And then, so you do that obviously in your reply, right? And you always want to offer a resolution of some kind. Now, in this case of a fake review, sometimes people like to leave their phone numbers in responses. I don't really think that leaving a phone number is the best idea in the entire world. I think that leaving a email address is the best idea. It's like, give them your first name, sure. Give them an email address. It could be responses at whatever my domain is.com, if you want to keep it anonymous, right? And not put out your personal email address. But anyway, put it out there and say, hey, I would love to talk to you. Email me your profile and basically your phone number, and I will reach out to you to resolve this. It can be as simple and sweet as that. But as long as you're doing the accept, acknowledge, reply, resolve, then you're doing fine. Because again, that 89% of people are going to be reading your review responses. Those are the people that you care about, your prospective customers. It's not the fake reviewer. The fake reviewer is not going to change their response. However, I have seen it actually happen before. But anyway.
But yeah,
Me
no, I
too.
mean that's amazing in terms of like the response protocol, like a really well thought out framework, and just knowing everyone's motives and how to handle it in a way that is really keenly professional, that you're responding within 24 hours. I think was a key takeaway that I got from what you said, and also providing that communication channel, but one that's obviously not going to be abused. Now, Jason, when it comes to actually removing those reviews, like specifically on Google, we know they have their terms and conditions of what constitutes what can be removed. How do you handle the fake reviews to get them removed from your clients' Google My Business?
Well, I guess it depends on the circumstance. So, we actually had a case where uh, somebody got upset, and somebody connected with them posted 17 posted 17 negative reviews. Okay, I'm calling them fake, but from the eyeball, it didn't look that crazy. As I started looking into it, I guess the person behind the account had gotten fired from their job, and so they posted 18 reviews for their employer. And so I was able to just sit there and say, okay, look, within a 1 hour window, business B got 18 negative reviews, and my client had 17 in a 2-week period. So I documented that, turned that all over. We had another situation where somebody made a really bad lapse in judgment in their location. Cops got called. Lady was like Facebook living this whole event, but I was able to use her Facebook videos and profiles to sit there and say, "Okay, look, here's something. It semi went viral. Check this out. These people came in because of it." And the nice thing was, these reviewers actually said, "Hey, yeah, I actually left a negative review on your behalf. That's not right." And they called the owners racist and that and the other. So I had all that documentation. Now I also have access as a product expert to go ahead and send it directly to Google. Other people, I recommend contacting Google support via Twitter. First things, you have to flag the review and wait 3 days, and then reach out to support. Doing phone or chat, they're not going to do anything, because you need to do that whole documentation. So either create a thread on the Google My Business forum, hoping one of us Google My Business product experts sees it, kicks it over to Google, or just go to Twitter support. They get back to you in about 7 days. Here's the thing: you have to follow them on Twitter, because they're going to communicate to you through DMs. So those are the best options to go. But yeah, it's just like, you have to go and be a major detective to sit there and say, okay, what caused the negative review attacks? What was there something that got triggered on social media? Did somebody say something stupid in a political discussion? I actually had that once where somebody told a Jewish person that they wanted to throw him in a fire, and I was just like, are you serious? And so yeah, business just got slammed with all these negatives, but I was able to use their moronic response and say, okay, look, this is what they did. Here's how it got triggered. Here's how it went viral, and use that as my supporting documents to get the negative review attacks taken down.
That's really interesting, and I think that's great insight. I was talking with a Grade Us customer before this, and he actually wasn't able to make this, but wanted to ask, if they had a Facebook review attack from a bunch of friends and families of a competitor, and I was thinking to myself, I didn't get to ask him, but I was like, how would you know that they're friends and family? But he knew somehow. So I can imagine that any ancillary sort of evidence that they were friends and families, which would break the terms and conditions, would be, formidable evidence to ultimately, hopefully, get those reviews removed. Now, we know Facebook is a different animal. Real quick before we move on, Jason, do you have any insights into getting a Facebook review removed? Can that even be done?
Facebook is just so slow and stuck behind the 8 ball. So unfortunately, unless you can actually show that it's not a real account, and and then you're able to you got to flag the profile. Don't flagging the reviews not gonna do anything. You got to flag the profile and wait for them to send that verification email out and confirm that it's a real person. Unfortunately, with Facebook, the best thing to do, I hate to say it, is just turn off the Facebook reviews, because that's really the only thing you're going to be able to do. I mean, I hate to say it. No, I'm going to say it. Nobody really cares about Facebook reviews. Okay, really, like, I mean, it's just so substandard. I mean, especially with the movement to the recommendations now. I mean, I have had more friends ask for recommendations on Facebook, and more people chimed in, and I've seen businesses actually, legitimate businesses, get business from those reviews. I referred a friend of mine to a masseuse in our town. They ended up, and other people recommended the same place. So they got 2 customers. They treated them well, and now they got customers for life. So I mean, here's the other thing that people don't think about when it comes to reviews. There's still referral business that's happening, right? So if you're doing great service and you're making your clients ambassadors, your brand ambassadors, you look, you don't have to worry about those reviews as much, because people are going to want to promote your business amongst their friends. So.
That's great. And I think with Facebook reviews, it's like if you have so many good reviews that you don't want to turn it off, but you do get a couple of bad ones, that just goes back to Ben's recommendation of just having a really good response and reply to those reviews as best that you can. So real quick, just one for each of you guys, if you have any. Are there any resources that you recommend local businesses would bookmark when it comes to reporting or getting fake Facebook reviews, or sorry, Google reviews? I think you already mentioned one, Jason, but Andy, do you have any resources that you recommend for local businesses?
The one that I suggest all businesses that I deal with set up is Google Alerts, because it's free. And Google Alerts, if you set it up right, mention all your brand names, your product names, any other names that you think would appear anywhere that Google can see, then you're going to get an email about it. And part of the problem is making sure that you're aware of it, because like we said earlier on as well, sometimes you don't even know if reviews have been left. You won't get an email every single time. You won't check your profile all the time. So if you're not, then you need to make sure that you're aware of what's going on.
Absolutely. Ben, quick resource, because I want to try and run through these so we can get to some Q&A. So what's the one resource that someone should bookmark?
It's going to have to be the GMB help community. It really is. I was going to say find a great provider that can do monitoring for you. That's preferably not doing scraping, and using the API. But yeah, really, when it comes down to Google, it's going to be the help community. I know you want to move through this really quick, but I need to say this.
Yep.
It's really, really important. We've touched on it maybe once or twice, but it's extremely important. What Jason said, Google will not do the work for you. Okay? You need, and I can't stress this enough, you need to be a detective, and you need to document things, and you need to document them as much as possible. If you say, well, it's obvious, you can tell this is a review network or they bought them, Google's going to be like, what? So really quickly, I saw one yesterday come in to help community. Great work, except for one piece. Didn't give a link to the review, the post on Facebook that showed where the review solicitation was being done. Can't do anything with it.
Yep.
Can't do anything with it. So anyway, sorry. Yeah. So it's going to basically be support.google.com/business. And then, like Jason said, just go ahead and post it, put everything into a Google Sheet. I guess that would be the resource. And, list it out intelligently.
Sounds good. Jason, beyond Google, the business support forums, do you have any?
Yeah, actually, I just did a whole write-up on SEMrush a couple of weeks ago on how to actually handle a negative review attack. And so I actually have some pretty good resources into, what to do, how to handle it, and how to contact support to get it all taken down. So yeah, I try to make sure that I put enough resources so that way people can, don't have to try to reverse engineer what I do, but they'll actually have the framework. So.
Great. And so anyone who is watching the replay of this webinar, just check below. We'll have the link of that article that Jason wrote so you can access it and bookmark it and use it if hopefully you never have to come into this situation, but if you do, you'll be able to find it very easily. So let's move forward a little and let's just take some questions. I'm going to skip through like a bunch of these. Had a lot of stuff we wanted to cover, but I don't know about you guys. I could talk about this stuff all day. I think it's very interesting. all of the ways that Google is always changing when it comes to fake reviews, all the new networks and schemes, and how it's a very real problem. So at this point, I'm going to dive into a few of the questions that we got, and just submit them to you guys and see how you can help. We have a lot of people, some great comments from Jay. Jay was sharing that he always clicks to look at the non 4 or 5 star reviews on Google My Business, Amazon, wherever, just to see, whether or not they're actually, legit or not. They wrote that products like Mailgun make it scary easy to create a ton of fake Google accounts to leave fake reviews. Yeah, there are a lot of tools out there that unfortunately make it easy to leave a fake review. Okay, so Michael asks, how do you provide the evidence to Google of targeted negative review campaigns? So when you go to that forum, and you've created the spreadsheet, Ben, how do you get that to Google?
So it's actually really easy to get to Google. So you're going to create your Google spreadsheet. It decides depending on the type of attack. Like let's say we're trying to red hen protocol something, which is something that Jason and I came up with when the red hen happened. When Sarah Huckabee, anyway. So that was a single location attacked by multiple users, which is very common, right? Somebody puts up a stupid social media post and they get attacked. Jason, I've seen you deal with tons of those. So, in that case, you're talking about one location, multiple reviewers. So, I guess you still could do on the left-hand column, you could do the location. And then on the top column, you could do each basically persona. And then what you would do is what you would do is then you would go ahead and you would start cataloging each one of the personas. And you would say they've left one for the red hen. And then you would put down a name of another business that they've reviewed. Eventually, you'll start to see a pattern evolve. If you are cataloging every single review, that it's like, oh, you can see, like, you can start to identify it, like almost like highlight the columns and say this is a fake profile. And oh, by the way, this profile and this profile and this profile, they all share reviews with the same places. Those are the ones, by the way, that you're almost guaranteed to get removed, is because of that. You're probably thinking to yourself, okay, I'm getting attacked by thousands or hundreds of reviews, so I really need to spend a lot of time doing this? No, you just need enough time into it just to prove that there's something going on. The other aspect of it too is that you need to provide the source. So like I was just talking about with the Facebook post, if there's a source, if there's a news story, like the red hen or something else, or like like what Jason was talking about, you just provide a link to the source and say, look, this just happened 2 hours ago. Within the space between now and then, we've gotten 100 reviews from multiple people, all giving us 1 stars.
Or 5.
Okay. Or 5s. Yeah, right. But anyway, you just need to provide that evidence. Be Batman.
Cool. And I think so. Google has been the main conversation this whole webinar, and obviously most people do focus on Google. We know at Grade Us, when it comes to Yelp, you can't solicit reviews. You can't ask for them. They do have much stronger mechanisms in place for preventing fake reviews. However, what about have you guys had experience with Yelp? We had a question from Richard. Tips on handling Yelp reviews. Do you still even encounter fake Yelp reviews that aren't moderated by Yelp? Jason?
Yeah, so so last October, they came out with a ghost algorithm. They did like a whole PR campaign and they hit 232 businesses with consumer alerts, right? So Yelp is like super aggressive as trying to take it down, and so I hear a lot of complaints about it. But yeah, look, fake reviews still happen. People are going to come up with any way they can, so they're going to try to do like VPNs, to do the check-ins. Contractors are a lot of times with contractors, they'll steal a photo and use it as part of the review. And I've seen Yelp come in and like take out that that review and mark it as violating their terms of service. But then again, they'll leave that photo up as something as part of the photo array, right? So yeah, we are still seeing it, but I mean Yelp is a lot more aggressive as how they handle it. But they don't, look, nobody's gonna catch everything, right? Like because of what I've been doing, I got hit with 3 negative reviews, and I know who did it, and so I actually turned it up just a little bit, and I responded to him. And at first, it was like, hey, you say that you paid me, $5,000, and you got no services. I said, you know what? Do me a favor, send me your invoice, and I'll go ahead and refund you their money. And they didn't do anything. And then I changed my response, and I came back, and I was like really jerkish, and I was like, hey, thank you so much for this fake negative review. You just now exposed all the businesses that you've been paid to leave reviews for, and now I'm going to go ahead and add them onto my site. And they took them down, So look, there's still ways that you can skirt the system. As a regular consumer, you can't ask for reviews. What I recommend is ask customers to leave photos. Because look, customer photos do a whole lot better job than business leaving their own photos. I've seen studies where even on Google, customer photos will get more views and impressions than the business photos. So when you're asking your customer to post a photo of your services, your work, your business, whatever, they now have to go to Yelp to go and leave that photo. Well, what's their next option when they're leaving that photo? Go ahead and leave a review, right? So they're already there. They're already primed and pumped, ready to go to help you out, And you can also do check-in offers, or you can just say, hey, have you seen our Yelp reviews? Have you seen how they look, and display those. So
that seems like an interesting workaround semantically. I wonder, like, if it's okay. Can you say, hey, leave us a photo on Yelp? Technically, you're not asking for a review. And to your point, that would kind of, lead into it. But I don't know if that would count as any sort of solicitation.
No, it's not. I actually asked our Yelp reps. I asked before I even did it. When this thought first came to me, I said, hey, is it okay to ask for a photo? And I said, yeah, nothing violates our guidelines with asking for a photo because you're not asking for a review. And I was just like, okay.
You just epiphanied my head right there, Jason. That is like a brilliant way to handle Yelp, because they are, very stringent about it. So we're getting to the end. We have a lot more great questions, but I don't think we'll be able to get to them all. I wanted to give you each a chance to basically share what you think your key takeaway or your key advice with fake reviews, and then share how someone could get in touch with you if they had any questions after this webinar and wanted to follow up. And before we leave and I go around the room, I just want to thank you guys for joining us and thanking the audience for being here and sticking with us and soaking up all this really interesting knowledge, because it is one of the most frustrating aspects of building your local digital marketing footprint is dealing with fake reviews, and they happen more often than not. So let's start with you, Andy. What is your biggest piece of advice when it comes to fake reviews, and how can people get in touch with you?
Probably the biggest one for me is don't take it lying down. If you think there's a negative review that's been left for you, you don't need to just leave it at that. I mean, there's always a way around this. Unless there's something really big going on, then you've always got recourse somewhere. And if you suspect something like that, either do the research yourself or hire somebody to report it on your behalf. But don't let feedback just get you down. That's probably the biggest one. And if anybody does want to pick up with me again, I'm always on Twitter at IQ SEO. I live on there.
Thank you so much, Andy. I hope you can have recover from your honeymoon vacation and welcome back to a digital marketing ecosystem.
Yeah, that's the next couple of weeks. Yep, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, Ben, what is your biggest piece of fake review advice, or could be responding to review advice, and what's the best way that someone could get in touch with you after the webinar?
I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. Be a pirate, accept, acknowledge, reply, resolve, grade us. No, just kidding. And be Batman. And that is do your investigation and then basically report it. but make sure you do your investigation. As far as getting in touch with me, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm always there at the social dude. You can reach me on my website, steadydemand.com, and always hope to fight the good fight. Always there to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you're recovering from a great weekend or week over at local U in Denver, and get some sun. Because you're based in Arizona, right?
Yeah, Phoenix. Yeah, we had a great monsoon last night.
I heard.
It was awesome.
Dry up then. Okay, Jason, last big piece of fake review advice, and how can people get in touch with you after the webinar?
Sure. Be persistent. Like, just because you flag the reviews and Google doesn't take any action, don't take that as a no. Just, contact support through Twitter or go to the Google My Business forum and let other real support people take a look at it, that have those specialties. And even if that doesn't work, then don't hesitate to go viral, right? Like, unfortunately, Google actually responds to PR, right? So after the law offices of Aaron Schlossenberg, they had to come up with this whole thing that we call the Red Hand Protocol. So that was the first business that got negatively attacked for going viral for the wrong reasons or right reasons, depending on what side of the fence you're on. But Google is now responding to that PR. So if you get a negative attack and you can actually prove it and you go through all the proper channels and Google won't take it down, then contact your local press and media and have them take that story, because then they're going to go to Google and say, hey, what's going on with this? And then Google's going to be like, oh, okay, we got to take it down. So there you have options. Like Andy said, you don't have to take it lying down. And if you ever want to reach out to me, I am on Twitter a lot, maybe too much. Kaiser Holiday, KEYSER Holiday from Doc Holiday and Kaiser from Usual Suspects. So feel free to chat me up. Look, I love reviews. I'm really strange that way. I find reviews is so fascinating because it is just kind of a new marketing tactic that, you really got to invest in or you're going to be left in the dust. So
I think it's great. It's great to get the origin of that Twitter handle. I always wondered where the Kaiser Holiday came from, and I'm a pop culture geek myself, so that's great insights. And I do love your PR suggestion. That is a really interesting way to go about it if worst comes to worst. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Garrett. I'm the Senior Content Marketing Manager at Grade Us. We will have a replay of this available on the Grade Us YouTube. If you do have any questions about using a review management platform to generate, monitor, and market your best online reviews, check us out at grade.us. It's been a pleasure. You gentlemen have a great rest of your day. Thank you, audience. Again, everyone, have a good one. We're out.